Coming up on Arirang News, the trade ministers of South Korea, China, and Japan will meet this Sunday in Beijing, their first three-way talks in as many years. They'll discuss the RCEP trade deal and a potential trilateral FTA. Both the U.S. and China say their Phase 1 trade deal is done. It's now in translation, and the U.S. Treasury Secretary says it'll be signed in January. And South Korea's Blue House confirms that President Moon Jae-in will meet next Tuesday with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Hopes are high that there will be progress on the two countries' trade issues and on military intelligence sharing. It's 4:00 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea's Blue House has revealed that President Moon Jae-in and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will sit down next Tuesday for a highly anticipated summit in the Chinese city of Chengdu. Here's the announcement this morning.
President Moon will hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister Abe on Tuesday afternoon in Chengdu. They will exchange views on bilateral issues, considering the recent difficulties in bilateral relations, and this being their first summit in 15 months. This meeting is highly significant.
The top office hopes the talks will maintain the momentum of dialogue while improving the two countries' ties. Asked by reporters whether progress will be made in regard to Tokyo's export curbs and the military intel sharing pact known as GSOMIA, a senior Blue House official said the leaders' meeting is bound to result in progress. He added that there appears to have been some advancements on the trade front during recent working-level discussions. And as for whether they'll cover the issue of Japan's drafting of Koreans into wartime forced labor, the official said preparations will be made in case Japan brings the topic up. With the North Korea nuclear talks stalling, the U.S. Special Envoy for North Korea is in China to discuss related issues and emphasize the importance of close communication between Washington and Beijing. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The Trump administration's special representative for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, met on Thursday with the Chinese official in charge of the Korean Peninsula affairs, Vice Foreign Minister Liu Zhaohui. During their talks in Beijing, the two officials agreed to continue close communications related to North Korea and expressed hope Washington will resume talks with Pyongyang as soon as possible. With Biegun trying to bolster cooperation with China to get North Korea back to the negotiating table, it's unclear they'll be able to join hands, considering Beijing has been pushing to ease sanctions on the North, while Washington insists they stay in place. Meanwhile, downplaying reports that Biegun could meet with North Korean officials during his stay in Beijing, the U.S. State Department said there are no meetings to announce regarding possible contact between U.S. and North Korean officials in the Chinese capital. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And according to South Korea's presidential office, the visits this week by the U.S. envoy Stephen Biegun to Seoul, Beijing, and Tokyo are all intended to keep up the momentum for talks between the U.S. and North Korea. That view was expressed Friday by a high-ranking official at the Blue House. Still, there's been no confirmation that officials from the North and the U.S. have been in contact. The North continues to tell the U.S. that there has to be progress by the end of the year or else, but Biegun has dismissed that deadline as artificial. The U.S. House of Representatives has impeached President Donald Trump. Normally, a trial would now begin in the Senate, which is controlled by the Republicans, but the Democrats are refusing to send them the articles of impeachment. Yoon Jung-min has the latest.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi refused on Wednesday to say when they're going to deliver the articles of impeachment to the Republican-held Senate so there can be a trial. There, it's overwhelmingly likely that President Trump would be acquitted. Pelosi cited concerns, however, that the trial would be unfair. She was speaking in a press conference after President Trump was impeached by the House.
I was not prepared to put the managers and that bill yet because we don't know the arena that we are in. Frankly, I don't care what the Republicans say.
By holding off on sending the articles to the Senate, the Democrats hope to pressure senators into adopting trial procedures that they think are fair. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell sharply criticized Speaker Pelosi for causing a delay in the trial, but he said he doesn't think it gives Pelosi any leverage. In the meantime, Reuters released a poll Thursday showing less than half of Americans want President Trump removed from office. Some 42% responded that they do want him removed. Another 17% said Trump should be formally reprimanded but not removed, while 29% said they want the impeachment charges dismissed. The poll was conducted online in the U.S. with 1,108 respondents between December 18th and 19th. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
At the Blue House this morning, President Moon and First Lady Kim Jong-suk made donations to the Community Chest of Korea as part of a fundraising campaign for people in need. In recognition of their charity, the couple were given Fruit of Love badges presented to them by South Korean celebrities Suzy and Chung Bo-seok, who are members of the Honor Society, for those who've made donations of at least 100 million won, or around $86,000 US. During the event, the president said it's important that people donate as part of establishing a more complete social safety net. The director of the award-winning South Korean film Parasite and its lead actor have been given national cultural medals from the government for their contributions to the global promotion of South Korea's film industry. On Thursday, the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism gave the film's director, Bong Joon-ho, the Eungwan Order of Cultural Merit, which is the country's second highest class of cultural medal. And to actor Song Kang-ho, it gave the fourth highest honor, the Okwan Medal. This year, Parasite became the first South Korean movie to win the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. Ahead of the three-way summit between South Korea, China, and Japan on Christmas Eve, the three countries will hold a meeting of their trade ministers. Seoul's Minister of Trade, Industry, and Energy, Sung-Yoon Mo, will be meeting with his Chinese and Japanese counterparts on Sunday in Beijing. These will be the first such talks in 3 years, and the first since Japan imposed export curbs on high-tech materials to Seoul last July. The ministers will discuss ways to accelerate the RCEP mega trade deal, a three-way free trade agreement, and other areas for cooperation at international organizations like the WTO. We're seeing some progress in regards to the so-called Phase 1 trade deal between the world's two largest economies. The U.S. has confirmed that Washington and Beijing are going to sign the deal early next month. And on that news, U.S. shares hit record highs. Lee Min-sun reports.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said the U.S. and China will sign their Phase 1 trade deal in early January. In an interview with CNBC on Thursday, Mnuchin said he was confident the signing will take place, but it's still going through comprehensive technical and legal steps. He also told reporters the pact is already in the documentation and translation process and is not subject to renegotiation.
We're going through a technical issue now where, again, the agreement is translated. I don't expect there's any changes. We'll sign the agreement in the beginning of January. Our focus on the moment is implementing Phase 1. This is going to be a tremendous opportunity for U.S. workers and for U.S. companies.
The deal will see China purchasing American farm products and the U.S. lifting tariffs on China.
China and the United States have reached an agreement on the text of the Phase 1 trade deal on the basis of equality and mutual respect. The United States will perform its commitment on partly canceling tariffs on Chinese goods and phasing out some tariffs slated to be added on Chinese products.
Despite Congress voting to impeach President Trump, updates on the trade deal came as a strong sign for investors.
Yes, it's been a sustained move higher, but it may have built in a lot of sort of good news and a lot of expectations about the trade agreement moving forward.
Wall Street's major indexes resumed their rally with fresh records on Thursday. The benchmark S&P 500 hit a sixth straight all-time high, its longest streak since January 2018, and the Nasdaq ended with gains for the seventh session in a row. The Dow Jones Industrial Average joined the other two in notching record closing highs. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news on this Friday, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for making time today.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, Donald Trump has been impeached in the markets. This has been expected, but it's also understood that he won't be removed from office because the Republicans control the Senate. Wall Street strongly higher on Thursday, as we just heard. What's the story there?
Yes, as you said, the equity market seems to continue to show rising trend despite the impeachment process. Most of the investors are expecting that the Republican-controlled Senate to acquit President Trump following the Wednesday's vote by the House Democrats to impeach him. If you look at the stock prices, it went up by more than 5% since the House of Representatives first voted October 31st to conduct impeachment proceedings against the president because investors did not fear he would be removed from the office. Clearly, that trend seems to be continuing. In fact, the U.S. market rose yesterday. Dow was up 0.49%, S&P was up 0.45%, and NASDAQ was up 0.67%. The reason for that is because this impeachment process actually brought in some of the positive implications to the fiscal and monetary policies, as well as the developments like China trade deal on the first stage, and also support from the new NAFTA. All in all, we think that the market will be moving on the basis of what's happening to the economic conditions. We think that the U.S. might show some recovery going into the next year.
Right. Well, an emerging factor in Korean stocks is whether or not North Korea decides to launch a missile, as people believe it might do towards the end of the year. What's happening in the Korean markets today, and what's your outlook?
Right. Yes, everybody is concerned about what's happening to the North Korea issues. As the Pyongyang appears to be preparing to launch a long-range missiles, experts see an end to a diplomatic process Washington has pursued to deneutralize North Korea so far. Some people are expecting that this will come sometime in Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, but no matter what, it might be coming through. Now, that should have caused some concern about the equity market, but I must say that Korean equity market have shown rising trend again. It is actually closed well above 2,200, the Kospi level. The reason for that is because everybody knows that this concern is continuing process. And if you look at the Korean equity market, it has been one of the biggest underperformer relative to other global markets. So if you think that this concern about the North Korea issues will cause some additional risk premium, I think that is probably not likely the case. Already Korea is trading at one of the lowest valuations. It is attaching quite a bit of a highest risk premium relative to any other countries. So yes, this is a concern, but North Korea issue has always been there. Therefore, we don't think that there will have any massive implication to the equity market.
Very interesting. Well, according to the Bank of Korea, consumer prices were down in November compared to a year ago. This is the 5th month in a row they've been down on year. But because the decline was smaller last month, this could be a sign of a turnaround. So in terms of prices, what are some key items to look at? And do you think inflation is going to go up, continue going up like this?
Yes, as you said, the Producers Price Index, PPI, declined by another 0.1% in November from a month earlier, and keeping this downward trend for the second consecutive month, according to the Bank of Korea. This came amid continued downturn of the global chip industry that led to the lower semiconductor prices. And prices for computers, electronics, and optical devices all declined by 1% in November, month on month. And this is third straight month of decline. As for the chemical product prices, it dipped 0.5% in the month, and also the price for the coal and oil prices, but the price of the coal and oil prices advanced by 0.6%. Also, the fishery and livestock prices also went up. Overall, we think that the demand for chip price might be recovering going into next year. That should have some positive implication for the PPI number. And most likely the inflation number should be fairly reasonably at current level. We don't think that it's going to pick up anytime soon that much, nor it's going to go down even further. At least stabilization is a positive news. We think that demand for chip is the most important factor for next year.
Got it. All right, Mr. Yu, that's where we'll wrap it up on this Friday. Thanks so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you very much.
Now, as we just discussed, South Korea's producer prices edging down again last month, mainly due to lower prices of industrial goods. The Bank of Korea says its producer price index came to 103.46 in November, down 0.1% on month, dropping for the fifth month in a row. Industrial goods prices declined 0.2% on month on lower prices for chemical goods and electronic goods. The prices of electricity, gas, and water also fell, offsetting the slight uptick in agricultural goods. The Korean government hopes to achieve economic growth next year of 2.4%. Some are asking whether that's realistic, but there are signs pointing to a recovery. Kim Da-mi takes a closer look.
Making that 2.4% growth rate come true will be a challenge. That's the general consensus among experts.
Many private institutions forecast between 1.8% and 2.0% growth. I think the reality will be very close to 2%, almost the same as 2019. But the government has a tendency to have an optimistic view.
In fact, the growth rate for this year is struggling to surpass 2%, far below the government's forecast of 2.7%. Next year's economic plan aims to reach the growth target by focusing on stimulating competitiveness and maximizing growth potential in both traditional and new industries.
Government focuses mainly upon the minimum wages and the 52-hour regulation. Those kind of labor policy are the main focus for the government policy. Also, there are new industries like automatic intelligences, and the drones, bio. So there's a new industries that we have to develop competitiveness. So government is trying to focus on balance, as well as the traditional industry. Government focuses on new industry.
In addition, exports, the bread and butter of the Korean economy, are expected to recover in the coming year, which will help the government reach that 3% export growth goal.
Exports, which have been negative for almost a year and a half, will recover next year. But hurdles including global uncertainties and global trade volume remain, which will directly affect Korean exports.
Exports, especially in the manufacturing sector, are also linked to another growing concern, the lack of good quality jobs like full-time jobs. And the government's job creation budget of around $21 billion for next year seems insufficient for people in their 40s who need full-time stable jobs to support their families.
The major sources of employment has to come from manufacturing, especially export-related industries, and the government has to focus on that kind of area. So we have to see, what the projects will be supplied by the government sooner or later.
Experts say the 2020 economic policy direction should boost personal consumption and investment, which will lead to jobs and income growth. But they question whether it'll be enough to turn around the economy and reach the government's economic growth targets. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
This week, South Korea announced its national strategy on artificial intelligence, and a large part of that plan is to foster specialists in the field through university programs, and also to bolster cooperation between industry and academia. Oh Soo-young tells us more.
This university lab in Seoul is where future smart technologies are conceived through algorithms. Led by Professor Chang Jun-hyuk, a world-renowned researcher in signal processing, the lab develops artificial intelligence solutions for voice assistants in smart speakers and automobiles, as well as wearable health devices. It's one of the few research centres in the country that has been nurturing graduate students in AI, providing them the chance to work with global companies like Samsung, LG and Hyundai Motor.
I'm currently participating in a national project to improve speech recognition, which is crucial for machines to understand and respond correctly to what we're saying.
By participating in various projects ranging from sound recognition to help identify faulty car parts to AI speakers that can measure the quality of your sleep, Students at the lab have been able to drive their careers forward, becoming research candidates for tech giants like Samsung and KT Corporation.
Our lab gets to work on the professor's corporate and national projects, and he helps us participate in academic conferences abroad. So we get to see the latest research and communicate with relevant specialists in the field. This really motivates me to continue pursuing my goal of researching voice technology that'll benefit our daily lives.
Given Korea's shortage of specialists in AI needed to drive innovation in the fourth industrial era, the government is aiming to foster a domestic talent pool by bolstering college programs.
Corporations seek problem solvers who have a solid understanding of AI algorithms and how to apply them. They also need to go beyond that and be able to create new programs or solutions. It is crucial for Korea to narrow down and focus on areas of AI that we can excel in. Industries with great potential include smartphones, automobiles, and shipbuilding technologies, so we should train and nurture AI specialists in those fields.
The government says it will expand the number of specialized courses in graduate schools in AI, aiming to produce 10,000 AI specialists every year until 2030. To encourage greater collaborations between industry and academia, it will also allow professors to be hired by private companies starting next year. Seoul Arirang News.
Starting tonight in central Seoul, there'll be a big light show every evening through the new year. It's called Seoul Light, and it takes place at Dongdaemun Design Plaza. The surface of the entire DDP building, some 220 meters long, will become a canvas for light displays and videos. This is Seoul Light's first edition, and through January 3rd, there'll be 4 16-minute shows a day, every hour from 7 to 10 p.m. Along with the light show, there'll be street performances and a festival market selling holiday gifts. The small town of Hansanmyeon is famous for its traditional fabric and its liquor. But these rich traditions are disappearing because of the town's aging population. So to try and save them, the town is trying to attract young, enterprising city dwellers who'd like a slower pace of life. Lee Kyung-eun has this story.
The entire town of Hansanmyeon in Chungcheongnam-do province has been turned into the campus of the Slow-Tech College. Here, 34 city dwellers have come to learn local skills that they will later use to launch their new businesses in the town. This project is jointly organized by the Ministry of the Interior and Safety and social venture company Giant in a bid to solve youth employment and the cultural extinction of the fast-aging rural community.
It provides students with the resources, space, and skills to experiment with their startup ideas, which is not easy in a highly competitive city. And the combination of the community's traditions and the students' new, trendy ideas can ultimately help local contents to spread across the nation and the world.
Like any other school, different schedules are prepared for each day, including making the region's traditional liquor, sokokju, and weaving the UNESCO-listed mochi fabric, which is made of the rami plant. Today, they're making a flower-shaped fan using Korean traditional paper, hanji, and are being taught by the town's artisan, who is recognized as an intangible cultural asset by the government.
It makes me happy just seeing these young people coming all the way here to learn this. But to be honest, I hope at least one of these students can take the role of passing down their heritage, which is disappearing.
Also on today's schedule, the students will renovate old empty houses to make the neighborhood more trendy and vibrant. And this kind of class is aimed at helping the students contribute to their new community. After 1 month of training, graduates move on to launching their own unique businesses, incorporating the skills that they've learned here with their personal backgrounds.
I'm a bag designer using upcycling materials, and coming here inspired me to relaunch my brand using mochi to spread its excellent quality.
The organizer says the project has brought unexpected benefits to the students and the town. Students tutor elementary school kids who've been deprived of teachers. Meanwhile, they enjoy the slower pace of life they cannot be had in the city. It may be too early to say if the project is the ultimate answer to the Korea's social problems, but it does promote coexistence and co-prosperity for the students and the community. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News, Seocheon.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.